In the San Diego suburb of Santee on Saturday, an incident occurred at Vaughn Supermarket where a man entered the grocery store with a Ku Klux Klan hood on his head and was repeatedly asked by not only the employees at the grocery store but by other customers there to remove the hood. And the employees were basically saying, you either remove the hood or you leave the premise. And when he got to the checkout, he removed his hood, bought his groceries, and left. Now, this story has went viral. The grocery store and the mayor of that city have both released statements saying that they condemn this man's actions. And I think that 99.99% of Americans will look at this man and say he is a immoral a-hole and he's despicable, he's a bigot. And most decent Americans would have that sentiment. But I think that even for a lot of Americans who look at that person and are disgusted by his actions, I think a lot of people don't see how severe this person's actions are, because the Ku Klux Klan was an organization that it wasn't just hillbillies in their pickup trucks. A lot of people tend to forget that the Ku Klux Klan in the South was congressmen, mayors, policemen, business owners, prominent individuals in those communities, and they used this organization as a way to terrorize black people in the South for 100 years. And then before the Klan, there was slavery. So I mean, for 300 years, black people were oppressed down south. And it's just disgusting that this man would think that in the year 2020 that this kind of behavior is acceptable, because I mean the Klan murdered tens of thousands of people down south. And these murders weren't just in some backwoods with no one knowing about it. No, I mean these were community events where people would take photographs of black men and women being hung from trees, and then they would put them on postcards, or they had pictures, and then they would mail them to relatives from wherever, like, hey, look, this is what we're doing in here. And sometimes they would even mail body parts of the people that were just murdered. I mean, these were lynchings in the South, were community events. And the severe oppression that happened down there, I mean, it's just it's insane. Like, I talked to some of my family members who, because a lot of my grandfather's family, they did move up here, but a lot of them still live down in Georgia. And I mean, you talk to them about what they saw growing up, and I mean, I couldn't even imagine growing up back then. I mean, you're basically a second class citizen. You're not even you have almost zero rights down there, and for the slightest slight of whatever, you can be dragged from your home in the middle of the night and hung from a tree for next to nothing. Sometimes they would. There was a story that I saw where a black man was doing pretty well for himself. He painted his house with a real nice coat of paint, and the white people in the town were jealous of him. They burned down his house and lynched him because his house was a little bit nicer than theirs. That's how oppressive it was down there. They wanted you to not only be living in a state of fear, they wanted you to be economically um, destitute. And I mean, it's sick, and it's like people they're so, like, like people think of ISIS as like the worst group that has ever affected Americans or whatever. But in reality, ISIS has only been around for what, 10, 15 years maybe. And the Klan was around for 100 years, and they terrorized people. And they like the Klan has probably killed way more people or way more Americans than ISIS has. And and don't get me wrong, like ISIS is still a horrendous organization, and they're disgusting human beings. But at the same time, you don't have to go to the other side of the planet to find groups that want to oppress people. They're right here at home in America, where these people, they think that whether it be because of their race or whatever, they think that they're superior to other people. But in reality, we're all human beings. If you talk to any biologist, we're pretty much all the same. You know, like the reason that black people are black is because they are from areas of the world where it's very tropical, and over time they adapt to it. The reason white people and whatever they it's because they don't. It's not as what is it this not as much sun in Europe. But at the end of the day, you can get the same blood transfusions and organ replacements from people of different races because we're all the same underneath. And it's just sad that people can be so ignorant and bigoted, but it is what it is. But if you guys want to, please comment, tell me what you guys think. It's a sad story. And I mean, that's all I really gotta say, y'all. Just stay